Not too long ago, I made a video discussing both the Legion Go 2 and the Legion Go S when they were first initially revealed. And now that we have more information, more concrete idea, I thought I figured it would be a good time to deeper dive in on the Legion Go 2 itself, because I didn't really discuss much about that one in particular because it was the one we knew the least amount at the time. First, let's break down the specs we know. The Legion Go 2 will have the new AMD Z2 Extreme chip with the AMD 880M or 890M graphics. We're not entirely sure which they are using. Some people are saying it is still the 780M, which I don't really get because in AMD's own slides, they show it having 16 CUs of total GPU core power, which is incredibly impressive, but not what the 780M is. The 780M is a 12 CU part, so it's not the 12 CU 780M, but the 890M uses 16 CUs, so I'm inclined to believe that the Z2 Extreme, though not out yet, is secretly an 890M in disguise. And I'm led to believe that, judging by the rest of the specs of the Z2 Extreme chip, it is essentially a Ryzen 7 HX370 AI chip, because on paper they have pretty much identical specs, which continues the process that we saw with the original Z1 Extreme, which was essentially a Ryzen 7 7740U, even down to the fact that they share the same graphics, core layout, cache, and power draw. The main difference being some driver optimizations here and there. So I'm fairly safe to say that it's going to have the 890M graphics, which are going to be incredibly impressive given what we already know about that chipset. But we can't say for 100% certainty until that comes out. Moving right along to the display of the Legion Go 2. It is a massive upgrade in my opinion, but some people actually might be a little disappointed. The new Z2 Go is going to be using an 8.8-inch 1080p 144Hz 500 nit peak brightness, 97% of the DCI P3 color gamut color space, and being OLED, which to me is far more important to me than the higher resolution found on the old model. For those of you who don't know for certain, the old model uses an 8.8-inch 2560 by 1600 144Hz 500 nit peak brightness display, which, don't get me wrong, that was an amazing display. The highest resolution we've ever seen on a handheld PC. But don't get me wrong, I loved how high resolution it was. It was so crisp and the picture quality was outstanding. But it didn't make a lot of sense for gaming. It was unrealistic to assume you'd be able to run most games at that high resolution outside of indie and older titles, which a lot of people were more than okay with, but I always thought it was kind of annoying to always have to drop the resolution, which can in some cases affect some things like UI, scaling issues, generally not my preferred way of doing things. I just vastly prefer being able to run at native resolution of the display. But seeing the drop from 2560 by 1600p all the way down to 1920 by 1200p makes a lot more sense to me. In order to achieve that, to sacrifice resolution in order to have an OLED display makes a massive improvement in terms of overall gaming enjoyment. As we've all seen from the Steam Deck OLED, an OLED screen can radically improve your experience. OLED is just so amazing for gaming. The deep, rich colors, the amazing vibrancy of the display, and just the image responsiveness is a lot higher. It also maintains its 144Hz refresh rate, which is amazing. I am more than happy to make the sacrifice of a higher resolution in favor of an OLED display. But some people do appreciate the higher resolution, though I am not sorry to see it go. Another of the upgrades we're going to be seeing to the Legion Go 2 is an increase in its total RAM capacity. You can spec it out all the way up until 32 gigabytes of memory, which is amazing. And you should be able to allocate 8 of that to specifically the integrated graphics, which should see a massive increase in performance, if anything we've seen with the ROG Ally X, which has a total of 24 gigs, 8 of which dedicated to its integrated graphics, which led to it being one of the best performing PC handhelds out there today. Once again, it maintains a 1TB storage SSD, which you can configure to be higher or replace it with your own, which is amazing. From what we've seen at CES, it should maintain its 4 USB 4.0 ports, which is really nice. With the advancements of the past couple years, we've also seen a massive increase in total battery capacity, going from 49.2 watt hours all the way up to an amazing 74 watt hours. And we've seen a similar jump in devices like the ROG Ally X, which originally, with the original Ally, only lasted about 5 hours in extreme battery saving mode, not gaming, just sort of sitting there at best for 5 hours. While the Ally X under the same conditions was able to go all the way up until 8 hours. And that's on older generation, less efficient silicon. Seeing the jump to the next generation with the Z2 Extreme, we should see even better battery efficiency. On top of that, the more efficient display, and on top of that lower resolution, we should also see some pretty decent battery gains, because the original Legion Go with its 2560 by 1600p display makes it pretty much of a battery drain when you're not really taking advantage of all of that, because it's just kind of wasting battery displaying a resolution that you realistically don't need on a screen that big. So dropping it to 1080p OLED, you should see massive battery gains with that alone. Something I should have mentioned back in the display section was the display is now a landscape native display, which some of you might not necessarily care about that or ever ran into any issues about that, but the original Legion Go's display was portrait originated, so it made certain games run not correctly, essentially. It would start running them in portrait mode and you have to either manually change it or be unable to exit the game, which is kind of bad. But it was a manageable and fixable issue. It's just something that makes it feel unpolished and just not great to use. Now it is using a landscape native display, which is incredibly nice and convenient. Eliminating a minor issue is always appreciated. From what people were able to see at the Legion Go booth at CES, we were able to get a rough estimate about how much this thing weighs, which currently it is still a prototype, but even if it's a prototype, 2.3 pounds is a little bit much on the heavier side. The original Legion Go weighed in at about 1.88 pounds, and this prototype weighs in about 2.38 pounds, pretty much 2.4 pounds, which is incredibly heavy. The original Legion Go was a chunky guy. It was heavy and it wasn't really playable for long periods of time if you're just holding it up. So hopefully when it fully releases in Q1 of this year, it hopefully is a little bit lighter, because at 2.4 pounds essentially, it is a chunky boy. Something that actually might help that chunkiness is the new design. It is overall a refinement of the original Legion Go's more than rough design. It is slimmed out, it is rounded, it is smoother to the touch, and it retains a lot of the core features that the original Legion Go had, such as the FPS mode, essentially a mouse underneath the right controller. They also retain the glass top trackpad on the right controller, which I personally always really enjoyed. The whole device just is smoothed out and just refined. It is really nice to look at. The last thing we're going to be discussing is when is this thing coming out. We currently don't have a verified release date at the moment, but it is confirmed to be coming out within the first half of this year. I anticipate it coming out at the latest May, but I would love to see it come out around April. I will update the description in the comment section of this video once we do have an actual release date, so if this video is now old, go check down there and you should find a corrected shipping window. The last thing to discuss is pricing. I genuinely believe that the Legion Go 2 is going to be a pretty expensive device, ranging somewhere near its original price for the original Legion Go, and for the higher spec models, entering almost over $1,000. So I'll give my quick pricing predictions now. I anticipate the base model costing anywhere between $700 to $800 is what I think a base model would cost. So that basically means 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and no extra trimmings whatsoever. And if you upgrade to the 2 terabytes and over 32 gigabytes RAM, you're going to be paying a pretty penny, probably close to $1,000 or $1,100. Once again, I'll update the description in the comment section down below once we get official pricing. This definitely isn't going to be a cheap device. Other than that, I would love to hear what you guys think. Are you excited for the Legion Go 2? Is it one device you're going to be picking up this year, or are you feeling like you don't necessarily need the upgrade? I would love to hear what you guys think down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.